Hi everyone, it's Hans here, the founder of Cappuccino, and welcome to this latest episode of Flat Whites and Insights, a podcast created to allow a space for open, honest and vulnerable conversations with real people, all over a beautiful cup of coffee. We're here in my home, so I'll be providing the flat whites, and my guests, they'll be providing the insights. So grab a coffee for yourselves, take a moment, and I hope you enjoy this latest conversation. Thank you, take care, and enjoy.
David, hi, thank you for taking some time to come join me, Flat Whites and Insights, and really looking forward to this conversation. We were just having a little chat before we hit record. We've bumped into each other a few times, both at coffee festivals, once in London, once in Bristol, but this will be the first time we've had a chance to really go deep into a conversation. And yeah, it seems like you've got a lot of experience in not just the coffee space, but in some topics, for example, like representation, and we said a little bit about your own story. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it.
And yeah, so I mean, you've actually listened to a few of the episodes, and I really appreciate that as well. But you probably know how this is going to start. Are you all right to give a brief introduction to yourself for those who maybe don't know who you are?
Sure. So I'm David. I am a coffee roaster out in the east of England. But previously I was a cafe manager and barista trainer at the Feed, a social enterprise in Norwich for 3 years previously. And I was a barista trainer for those who were out of work or had barriers to employment. So I work with a variety of different people, whether it's mental health issues, whether it's physical disabilities, or people looking to get back into the workplace who've been out for a long time and might be dealing with some anxiousness. And then before that, I was in specialty coffee, just as a barista. And before that, I had a career in marketing. But things have led me to kind of where I am, and I found that kind of the 3 years of working in a charity and social enterprise and seeing their growth, I realized I had a lot of experience to kind of pull off. And I was kind of pushed and encouraged to go and talk about it at coffee festivals, whether it's representation. I'm mixed race. I have essentially like 6 nationalities and ethnicities combined into one. So when people see me, they have absolutely no idea where I'm from. But I think I often describe myself as kind of a child of the world, as it were, or kind of cross borders, nationalities and experiences. But I think there's a lot of people out there who kind of have that similar experience as well. And yeah, thank you for having me.
No, it's great, and it's amazing. And even just in that introduction, there's a couple of points that are amazing. And I know when we first met, you were talking about where you'd worked at that cafe, the Feed, I think it was, and about the work you're doing to almost help get people that confidence, maybe help them feel a part of something and get people back up on their feet, and that social enterprise thing. I mean, I do a lot of work with the charity Restore, who are Oxfordshire based, and again, they have a garden cafe, and all the people who work there, they get the barista training as part of the programs there, and then it just helps them, feel that part of society again. So you mentioned then and how rewarding that must be.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was incredible, to be honest. I think when I became a barista, I kind of had some experience just with coffee at home, but also I then moved into kind of a cafe, and then moved into a high pressure and high volume kind of cafes, working with specialty coffee on fancy machines.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot sort of during that first year, including during kind of the first lockdown. There was this just time for myself to kind of really study and focus and go further into barista work. And when the year kind of came to an end, the cafe was looking to kind of cut costs, but also I think I was at that point where I realized I kind of learned a really good foundation and I could kind of pass that on. So when this job came up with the Feed to kind of work with people and train people, I kind of thought I was the perfect person because I had I'd always kind of volunteered in charity, and I had an understanding of Norwich and its city and kind of the situation in itself. And I kind of went for that job. But there was a really specific moment where I never realized that you could kind of combine coffee and charity. It was just there was a moment where I was at London Coffee Festival in 2019. I met Crisis Coffee, who were doing the same, focusing on really assisting those, well, a lot of homeless people, but also those out of prison, just that mixed experience that people have. And I remember meeting someone, having a chat with them, and them telling me about how they thought when they were being training as a barista that they were just learning to work kind of at Starbucks, but actually what came out of it was when they came to the festival, it was their first time seeing how much of a trade it was and how much of a career there was there. And I met some of the barista trainers there, and it was quite a real changing moment for me as well. So when this opportunity came up to train people, I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And 3 years later, hundreds of people trained, and kind of I can walk around the city and see in cafes people I've trained. It's really, it's a constant kind of reminder that you've done something really good, and it's not just like, for myself, it's very rewarding. But when you kind of see people in sustained employment for a longer period, and you go back to a cafe and they're still there, it's nice to see a lot of that turnaround in their life.
Yeah, amazing. It's so much more than the coffee, like you say, so much more than that. That's just the tool that was able to give them that confidence and a skill to then go out and make their own ways in life again. So yeah, that's incredible to hear. Something else that we mentioned before we hit record was the Youth Academy. Now, it's something I've heard of. I have to be honest, I don't really know what it entails. I'm guessing this is my guess, or from what I've seen, it's around basically training up young people to become skilled baristas in specialized coffee. That might be way off the mark, but
yeah. So it's kind of that's kind of the base. So the Youth Academy, it's a global program, and then different countries will have different youth academy programs with a similar design. The main focus is really taking someone who's behind the bar every day and a barista, and really introducing them to see that there's a world beyond the bar, that your career in hospitality doesn't end when you become a shift leader or when you become a cafe manager, that actually there is this entire supply chain behind coffee, and there is opportunities to really express yourself, whether it's through competition, whether it's through events or green coffee. And essentially they take 6 people each year. You apply for it and it goes through a panel. And the Youth Academy, currently sponsored by VA, also Coffee Knowledge Hub and Nova Sinanelli, and the SCA do help as well. They basically sponsor these 6 people to be put through their SCA qualifications, all the foundation courses covering different things such as green sensory, barista brewing, but then they take you up to barista professional. And it's quite an intense, it's quite an intense. At one point we were sort of doing once a week to once every 2 weeks. And we had 6 sessions in person for the intermediate and professional and the roasting foundations. But the main difference is when you sign up for a training course, when you signed up for your SEA qualifications, you'll meet the group who've signed up for that day. Whereas what happens in this is we become kind of a group of 6, and we can bounce off each other like a class traveling through years. We spend time with each other. We talk to each other outside of work and also about work. And then you're part of a group of different years who have also graduated, all connecting together. And it's been an incredible experience, to be honest, because I was someone coming in with experience who's managed the cafe, but it's for those under 30, and I was 29 when I applied, so it was perfect timing. It was very much this is my last year, I need to take this, here's my application. But I got a lot out of it, and we're just coming up to the finish line now, but I've been able to do things and meet people who I've never been able to sit in a room with. So For example, we went to assembly and we got to sit down with Nick, who runs assembly, and also with Claire Wallace, who roasts at assembly, and just having an hour and a half to 2 hours speaking with people with so much of like a wealth of experience who are normally in meetings or running around, just to listen to not only their story but them talk about things that they're really passionate about. We got to meet lots of different kind of special guests from not only competitions but large cafes, and learn about kind of the behind the scenes bit of their experiences, the challenges they faced, which you won't normally hear about, and just having more of an open and honest conversation about what is out there in the supply chain, and in general. So the people I've studied with have been incredible, and I love them to pieces. And I've seen them grow from just being regular baristas and barista trainers to actually looking at careers in green coffee, traveling out to Colombia and seeing a farm. I didn't. This is just where people have kind of ascended to and what they are learning about and kind of pushing themselves. And I've realized what I do like, what I don't like, because I went into it going, I'm going to be a better barista trainer. And then I've come out of it going, actually, there's a lot more to this kind of ecosystem than I thought there was.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different things I can talk about, a lot of different things I can go into. And hopefully next year is a chance to kind of push myself and see whether I can kind of achieve or do those things. But in grand summary, it is sponsored, it is putting you through your training, but also it really gives you an opportunity to do it as a class, to bounce off each other and to learn. And it's just a lot more like intense. You know, when sometimes you go, if you ever been to like a summer camp or anything and you spend 3 days with people, but when you're with them for 3 days or 5 days, it's such an intense feeling that you develop out of it. Like at the end of it, you're almost in tears. It's the same. It's the same kind of feeling. Like I feel like I've only spent half this year with them, but everyone will be with me not only in my career but also in my general life.
100%. It's that building a beyond the training, and again, almost to go back to that, it's more than the coffee. It's that network, and also those kind of, you know, that support group as well in a way. Maybe it's you might have all very different life experiences, but it's something that you're experiencing all and going through together. And then it's also, you mentioned about maybe seeing people in Norwich after the feed, seeing them in their cafes and how they grow beyond it. It will also probably, once you finish this, almost seeing where that group of 6 end up, and the potential is probably limitless, because it sounds like the opportunities are amazing. So I certainly know what you mean with regard to that group feel, though. So it wasn't actually in a coffee space, but during the lockdowns, I wasn't in the best headspace, and I did a life coaching. It was a group of 6 of us, so the same size, and I'd done a bit of like the talking space, like because of the lockdown particularly, and it felt quite lonely maybe when you're just I was on a call, and it was, you know, just hearing things, and I it was frustrating because I'm quite well read in the area, so I knew what I should be doing and how I should get, but still like wasn't able to do it. So having that group and being able to hear other people's experiences was amazing, and we had the same. It was only maybe 2-3 months, but at the end of it, it was almost felt a little bit like, you know, when you left school or when you left the camp, and it's still in touch with some of those people now, and it's had really profound effect. It's
always that kind of that shared experiences. So I might have gone to high school with a lot of people, and some of them I'm still in contact with, but some of them I'm not, even though we've had shared experiences together. And I think you have different types of experiences, and sometimes that really intense few moments where you give yourself to this program, to where you give yourself to like a training or the group. Like I think it must be the same when I was listening to your podcast with those who are working the team in football. Like there's just an emotion and a feeling that you have when you're in that environment.
It's that, talking about like memories. Often people have it. I know a lot of people in football who they might have won a trophy or won promotion in a certain year, and they will just, the journey they went through together, and the bonds that you form, and the amount you really get to know each other, because you see each other in the highs, but you actually learn a lot about people in the lows and the stressful moments. And that's when you really form those bonds that you kind of remember. So it's really great. And I think something you touched on there, you say about shared experiences, and something that I found really fascinating from when you gave your talk, you were on the panel at Bristol, which hosted by Jordan, who some people know she was Dan's sister. I think she's changed her name on Instagram now. But yeah, I thought that was brilliant. And apologies, I can't remember the names of everyone else on the panel. But shared experiences, and something I want to talk about is lived experiences and how you can't really replicate that. So it was about representation and maybe about the importance of that in the coffee industry and how much work there is maybe still to do. And you mentioned about, the importance of, you have to, don't just go with familiarity and how much having a diverse group can actually add so much value, just because, as we said, people are bringing different things to the table. So from your own personal experience, have there ever been any challenges you faced in the coffee space because of that kind of, like you said, being a child of the world, should we say?
Yeah, it's a complicated one. So I can talk about it from two perspectives. One is witnessing it versus experiencing it. So kind of talking about the witnessing it side, the first one is, to be honest, women in coffee have a more difficult time. And I'm not the person really to speak about it, as I haven't had that lived experience, but I've at least seen it. A lot of the role models in my life and a lot of my managers who I've been most connected with were women. And it's a lot of the time, those who've achieved that position have a real drive and a real focus, and have taken a lot of slack during their time, basically. And it's hard. So when you go into a cafe, one of the things I've always noticed, and it's not just in the city, so I'm talking out of the city now, I'm talking in your local community cafes, in your, say you're somewhere in the middle of Yorkshire, and there's a small cafe, most of the town, maybe 99% of people are white. You can still go in a cafe and you'll see a diversity maybe of women, men, but it's when you go behind the hospitality side, I think there's an expectation in hospitality that women have a caring nature, which doesn't, this is such a strange concept in itself, but people believe, okay, hospitality, women are good. If you put them in front, people will talk to them. They're a lot nicer to see, or something like that, or they're more approachable. And there is this kind of first position there where people really connect to that. So you see women in cafes, but then when you go behind and you look at the roasting side, or you look at the logistics side, or you look at the production side, I think there's an expectation, unfortunately, that there are not that many women on that side. And from my personal experience, I've seen in, for example, very boys clubs, basically, a lot of owners are men, a lot of people they hire are kind of their friends, or they are men within their circle, or kind of within their respect circle of coffee. And I think I was listening to a few panels, I've listened to Cafe Culture, I've listened to Manchester about the topic of women in coffee. And one of the main things is that one is kind of breaking into that mold is very difficult. There are obviously exceptions to those rules, and there are some incredible roasters who are women, but a lot of them do work for women as well. And it's kind of this, how do you break the mold? And also, if I don't see people like me working, or they're not put on the front position of this is my roaster, or this is our logistics person, unless that's being shared, how will you know that you have a job in those positions? And I think it's the same a lot of the time with ethnicities in that small sense, where if you don't see someone who looks like you, how do you know it's a job for you?
Yeah, that's so true. So true for young people. People thinking that's not somewhere that I'm. Maybe even if it's not talking about being welcome, it's just not something where you don't see people that look like you. You just think, oh, okay, that's not even an option. And we see a big. Sorry, just quickly, we see as very similar in football, where you say about even like now, women's football, the growth in the game is massive, but. And actually from like the ethnicity side as well, number of players, there's a really diverse playing pool of in England now, but you only have to go a few levels back just to managers, and there's only, I think, in the top 4 divisions, only 1 or 2 black managers at the moment in England, and yet there's about 50% of players are. And then you go even higher up and you look at board level, exec level, chairman level, and it's maybe that similar. That's what I could relate when you were saying front of house and at the bar, there's women in coffee, but as soon as you get to like ownership or people at maybe like the decision making level, that's where we need to get people to that table kind of thing.
Yeah, and one of the things I really loved about that panel was speaking to Natalie from Boston Brewer Academy, just seeing the desire for change, this change maker kind of attitude. I've seen it with so many different people. And I was talking about the topic of women, and kind of I want to bring it back to the fact that there are people who are breaking the mold, but the fact there's a mold is an issue in itself. And just like I have so much like admiration for people who are willing to talk about it in the first place and talk about how we can change these things. I think one of the things I kind of talked about on the panel is even going to Bristol. I thought, wow, it's so diverse here. Whereas the people from Bristol were like, it's not that diverse. Everyone's a hipster. Like, and I just found it so strange because I grew up in a lot of different places. So I was born in London, but I've also lived in Hong Kong, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Norwich. And Norwich is kind of my hometown, even though I'm not originally from here. But I've kind of seen its transition where I was in a school with about 1,600 people, and maybe 12 of them were from another not white background. And I ended up being called like brother by multiple nationalities, whether it's Pakistani or anything else. These people kind of adopted me. But seeing the kind of change and seeing more migration into Norwich and seeing more diverse groups of people, I haven't seen that reflected in businesses, and particularly on the coffee side as well. So it's still the same people. It's still kind of the same people popping around. And I think one of the things that I've often heard about is the fact that, and spoken to people about, especially while I was training, is there is a barrier when it comes to your age, there is a barrier when it comes to your gender, there is a barrier when it comes to your ethnicity, just trying to get these jobs. And just the idea for a lot of people when they're hiring is that familiarity is kind of key. You have certain things that you look for. Are they ambitious? Are they da-da-da? Are they da-da-da? But actually, are you replacing one cog with the same cog, or are you trying to improve? And this is kind of my thought process is when I look at hiring, when I look at management, having a diverse group of people is really key for me. And this comes from the fact I studied in a problem-based learning system with lots of different nationalities when I was living in the Netherlands. And everyone has a different perspective and an idea. And I'm not able to, the only way you can really develop your ideas is if they're challenged. And not from a mean place, but rather from,
I know what you mean.
From a perspective of someone else has a different way of working. How do I work within this? Or how do I bridge this gap to find a better goal? And when I've managed people at different ages, at different genders, non-binary, and seeing kind of not only their ideas or the idea generation process, but also just talking to them about their experiences, where they are in their life, what their goal is, what their ambition. I learned a lot, and I also learned how I can help them achieve their goals and dreams within the job. And whether the job is just kind of something for them to support their hobbies. But even if that's the case, that was kind of a real sort of learning moment for me to go, okay, we are all different. And how do I make a better team, and how do we get to a better solution? Because I can't solve all the problems from my experiences alone. And I've gone on a slight tangent, but
I love it. It's so true. And we recently at work did a big piece on our values, and a big thing for me is about being able to be authentic. And again, that comes through diversity. If you're in a workplace where you feel you can be yourself and you can really talk about your passions or your cultures or share, then it only just creates a space where everyone else, you're learning, whether that's not just learning about your trade or learning about your skill, you just, developing as a person. And if people are authentic and if people are happy, they're going to then be motivated. And it's not about the end result. It's about just creating a culture where everyone can be their best. But as a result, the performance will naturally improve, I think.
No, 100%. Like bringing in people from different experiences brings different ideas, but also it brings a nice unity together. Oftentimes we put up too many gaps between each other. And the workplace is actually one place where all the barriers have to come down for a unified goal. And in a sense, you can gel a bit more with in that way.
No, definitely. I love that. I love that. Now, something else I did want to touch on is anxiety. So it's something that we have a shared experience, obviously different experiences, but it's something that I've spoken fairly openly on my Instagram, and obviously in some of the episodes, it's anxiety and depression. I have both, which is a kind of an interesting combination sometimes, because they can be, sometimes kind of one ways out the other, and very different. But for yourself, what was your kind of experience of anxiety been, or when did that start? Maybe.
So I think I've gone through bouts of kind of anxiety and depression for different reasons. But generally, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but I've been lucky in the sense that I've had a source of anxiety, and when I've cut that source, then I've been in a recovery period. But it is like a recovery period. You're not fully out of it, but you're just less inflicted by it on your daily basis. So one of the things I often talk about when I go to kind of talk about mental health, I've done it through the core directive when I was speaking to people, and I've done it actually at Cafe Culture, which is really nice, is that the reason I'm in coffee is because of my mental health. So I had trained for marketing for a long time. It was really my passion. I still can walk through a supermarket and spend 2-3 hours there and talk about all the different packaging that's changed, all the different branding decisions. It is a passion of mine, and it's kind of, it runs in my blood, as it were. But working in the environment was different, and just I was in the wrong place. I had the wrong kind of managers, and then I tried to switch and still had the wrong thing for me. And unfortunately, like, the relationships I had with managers were really bad and really negative on my side, because they weren't the right managers for me. And as a result, I really just need to escape. And I ended up just leaving marketing completely and just quitting, and having to reposition myself, which was kind of a real big decision. It's like, where am I going to live? What am I going to do now? What am I going to focus on? What career path do I want to make? But at the time, it was, you wake up, you don't want to go to work, you go to work, you suffer through it, you question every decision you've ever made, and just takes you what should be a 2-minute email takes 30 minutes, because you just keep rereading it because you don't want to get anything wrong.
And relate massively.
And then you go home, you're burnt out, you cry, and you look at your emails before bed, and then you end up staying up until sort of 12. But you shouldn't reply to your emails because it's late at night and people know you are on your emails. And it's this cycle of absolute kind of chaos which drags you down and just really tears at you before you realize it. And then just one day you go, I can't have enough of this anymore. I just can't do it. And I basically went on holiday for 3 weeks. I got married, and it was wonderful, and I had the best 3 weeks of my life. And then I came home, went to work, realized after one day, oh my God, this is bad. And I had to quit. And then I really suffered with that for quite a while. It was just a recovery period where I was just trying to learn that it wasn't my fault. These things happen. It wasn't the right place for me. I made some wrong decisions on the way, but those decisions have led me to this better place. And then actually, so coffee has a lot of the time been a vehicle rather than a passion, which sounds odd, but I love coffee, but it has been a vehicle for me to do the things I love rather than
I can relate
drink itself.
Like with football as well for me, and I'll just interject, and coffee as well. I fell into coffee when my mental health took a dip. So again, can relate there. When I set up just an Instagram page, Cappuccino, was going to review cafes. Didn't have my name to it initially because there was shame, and I'll be honest, like it was I didn't want people to know that I was struggling, but it was like an anonymous escape, and then actually started to feel a bit more, no, if I'm really going to make value from this and just be honest, and it lifted a weight. But yeah, with me as well, football as well, it's a vehicle. I love the sport, but seeing the potential and the impact that sport can make to bring people together. Yes, there's the challenges in it, of course, and it's unfortunately since COVID, there's been a real upturn in bad behaviour, especially in youth football, with like the adults in youth football, whether it's just the nation is a bit more angsty and the nation's a bit more uptight and needs to see a release. But yeah, it's the vehicle. So same as you mentioned with coffee, it's what you can do through coffee, which is amazing.
Yeah, I think that's always one of the great thing. Oh, not great, but like one of the greatest things that have happened to us in both the bad sense and the good sense is we all learn a lot about ourselves during lockdown, and we both all had different experiences, some incredibly positive, some incredibly horrible and negative experiences. And coming out of that, it's kind of trying to recalibrate. It's been very difficult. And for some, it's been more difficult than others because we look back at those 3 years, or those 2 years, right? 2 years. It's very much a blur. You look back at it, and some people have the most traumatic experiences. They lost loved ones. They experienced anxiety on a level which they couldn't deal with. They couldn't go outside. They were worried they were going to get sick. They were worried they were going to make someone else sick. And you walk out of that, and you had this traumatic experience where someone might have had a chance to delve deeper into their hobbies, learn about themselves. They didn't touch anything. So it was a great time for them while other people are suffering. And it's not that anyone had a bad experience and good experience, or this is the right, this is the wrong, but rather it's just we all have to somehow get back to it and understand that there was differences in experience.
And I think almost where you said about from that time when you're working in marketing and then almost left, and there's that recovery period after. It's almost like as a nation, as a society, there's this recalibration is a great word, and I think we're still in that we're still coming back, and every now and again I'll be somewhere and I'll still see the 2 meter signs, or someone's not taking down a COVID sign. It almost reminds you, and you just think, oh wow, that really happened. 2-3 years that was normal then. That was just what we all did, and it's not something you can just snap back into reality, like snap back into the everyday before. So
it was a strange period because I trained during the first lockdown, couldn't do anything. Like it was just such a strange experience being locked into kind of a house, hoping everything will be okay. And then during the second one, I'd switched jobs to the feed, and they were very kind, and they let me kind of work just 2 hours a day. But what I did is I ran the community fridge for the city centre, which was an enlightening experience and also a terrifying and depressing experience, actually, when you look back at it. We had a blizzard, and there was a queue for 1 hour of people waiting in a blizzard for food because they were just desperate for food and financial support, and things were not great for a lot of people. And seeing that, and then going back to regular life, going, oh my God, this was a horrible experience. Like if you tell people I was standing in a queue in a blizzard for an hour to get the possibility of having food, or I took a bus at a risk to get this, or I walked from really far away on the chance there might be something donated, it was crazy. Like
into perspective, like the reality of the situation.
You learn a lot about your privilege, but also you learn that you see more where things need improving, and it's not necessarily just it's a global issue and it happens everywhere. But when you see it in your community and those you interact with on a daily basis, and you see people who you never thought were in that situation, you learn a lot that actually maybe you weren't observant, or that maybe things get past you that you're not paying full attention to.
Because everyone we all do, don't we? We're all in our own everyone's view of life. You all have your own perspective. You could be the same, 2 people could almost have the exact same day and see it completely differently, depending on what space your head's in, what's on your mind, what you go. And I think that's really interesting. Something that I've tried to almost, there's a positive to that, in that you can control in a way how you're viewing the day. I used to be one who'd get so wound up by like one thing would happen and that'd be it for me. The day be a write-off. I'd be like, well, now I'm trying to get a bit better at that, but at the same time it just shows how much we miss because we focus on our own experience rather than the actual wider what's going on around us. And
people should never feel bad about focusing on themselves. That's the other
self-care is not selfish. I'll say that all the time. Self-care is not selfish.
That's it. I had some huge changes in my life when I realized I wasn't taking care of myself. And it was a sudden realization that actually, how can I take care of anyone else? I can barely take care of myself. Like,
Yes.
I was going through like I had to make some major changes on jobs, where I live, like relationship, because I wasn't in the best space, and just being able to pull back, recalibrate was quite important for me, and it was quite important for the people around me as well, just for my own like care and safety. One of the things that I will say, like, now I don't really experience anxiety that much. Maybe I will have a moment, a flash, like we were talking about, where I will feel that same sense of like breathlessness, or I will have that almost like automatic response. But in general life, I really, after leaving marketing, I began to reflect a lot, and in a way where I would get to the end of the day, I'd look back at the day, and I, not in a sense forgive myself, but I would look at the decisions I made and why I made them sort of through an analytical lens, and I wouldn't punish myself to say, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that," or "You did this wrong," but rather to understand myself and why I make my decisions. And it's kind of one of the really important things, as I worked at the feed in a place where we had supervision, and we had a place to kind of an outlet to go once a month and speak to someone who is a trained counsellor. And I remember walking into that first session saying, I might be a bit odd because I actually quite like myself. And it's because I know who I was versus who I am now. And that ability to self-reflect at the end of the day and look back at this, like, not in my life, but like the ability to look back at yourself and know your limitations. So I know when I'm uncomfortable, I know what I can do energy-wise versus what I can't do. I know when I'm near to burn out, or I know when I need to stop. And it's really something that is so useful.
Yes, that self-awareness is so important, because so many people are not aware of that. And actually, if you were to just open the question to how do you know if you're on the verge of burnout, or what are the signs in yourself, there'll be a lot of people who would never have even thought of it. Myself, again, because I've experienced burnout, which I'm the same now. I know, but still I find myself, I get caught up on this wheel. Even at the moment, I'm very much in need of a bit of a break. It's been a crazy couple of months, but my partner's great. I've been with her for, it's kind of 12 years now, so we've been together a long time. But she's seen me before I had my diagnosis. She's seen me at my highs, she's seen me at my lows, and so she knows those behaviors as well. And so she'll almost spot before myself. She'll be like, "You're doing too much. You're doing too much." So there's never anything. No, there is sympathy. But the way she's always like, "Well, I told you, you should have stopped. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that." But it's so important to have that awareness and know yourself. And
it's good if you have the capacity to have a support network who've known you and and can look at you and know where you are, then that's kind of really nice to have. Because I have friends who've been with me since the start of my journey and have seen the different phases. So they will ask me, not just like, "Oh, how are you doing?" but actually like, "How are you?" Talk about it. And I'm lucky to have that. But on a self-reflective level, I can kind of see when I'm burnt out, because I don't want to do it anymore. Basically, I just have those moments where, like, I always love what I do, whether it's going to work, whether it's I get really excited to go do something with coffee, whether it's cupping or just like running an event locally. And if I have this feeling where maybe I could miss it, or maybe things are not great, it's a time for me when I go, am I tired? Like, am I doing too much? Like,
almost like, why am I thinking that? Because deep down you know yourself that you love doing it.
I got to the end of October, and I've been to London twice. I've done like multiple day things. I've been working. I traveled, and I got to the end of it, and I cancelled all my plans for November. I just knew I needed the time, because I knew December was around the corner. It sounds really silly, but I write everything down in my calendar. And being able to look at your calendar and go, it's a bit packed there. You know that socializing can be quite taxing on a lot of people, and some people get rejuvenated by it, but I'm somewhere in between where I really enjoy it, but if I do it too much, I'm going to be tired.
I'm the same. I have to it's similar, exactly the same. We're looking at the calendar, but I have it on my phone, but like have a look at
me too.
But it's like shared with my partner as well, so it is quite good, because she'll sometimes, if she sees, and we have different color coding, and I don't need to go into the details of my
we have the same, but I always forget to put stuff on there.
But no, but we have it, and so just even from looking at it at a month view, she'll see if there's lots of the color of my plan. She can then even challenge me on it, but it's okay, but it partly comes from that understanding with ourselves that maybe the me of 3-4 years ago, I wouldn't have liked to have been challenged. I'd be like, well, it's my time, I can do what I want, but I know it's coming from a place of care.
Yeah,
because she knows if I do all those plans, then a week, 2 weeks down the line, I'll probably not be feeling great, and it's just not good. So it's just, like you say, just being aware of it before it gets to that crisis moment is really, really important. And I think that's something anyone could take away. Anyone listening is just that: do you actually wait until you're burnt out, or do you look at finding the signs and that long-term care? You'd rather be 80%, 100% of the time than 100%, 80% of the time, and spend 20% of the time burnt out doing nothing. And that's something I try to tell myself at work when I'm trying to, perform and do everything to the best of my ability. Like, it's better to be 80%, 100% of the time. That's what I try and tell myself.
I'm pretty honest. So I always, before a job, I tell people what I'm like, and I tell people my expectations, and I find out what they're like, and I find out what their expectations are, and if it's the right thing for me. But also with the team I work with, I've always made it very clear: transparency and honesty is probably the best way. So if you tell me up front you don't want to talk to anyone today, or you're having a bad day, then we can wrap around to make sure that you feel cozy and comforted, because it happens to everyone. Everyone has a day where they go, I just don't want to be here. I don't want to do it. And being able to take care of each other helps a lot. Like, one of the first things I said when I went into work is that we're going to spend more time together than we are with our partners. And so let's at least take care of each other and make sure it's a good environment. I'm not here to say we're a big family. I think that unfortunately, can be quite manipulative in a way, but rather just being an honest people, you begin to like that people more when you kind of break down the barrier and just say, I'm having a bad day. Do you mind just doing a bit more? Because when it comes around, you'll appreciate it as well from both sides.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think something that you mentioned before we recorded, I'd love to pick back up on is a question that you always ask if you're going for an interview. So I'll let you share it. But I really like that, actually. I think it's really good.
So management is a topic I never thought was going to be big in my life, but ended up becoming very big because it became a source of anxiety for me. But it's that realization that I need certain management. And I think everyone needs certain management. And some people have ways of managing where they need you to follow what they're doing exactly and do it the exact same way. Some people leave you be and just let you get on with it without guidance. And I think one of the big things and the big takeaway I offer to people is really to understand what kind of manager you want to be and also what manager you need. And so when I go to an interview, one of the things I'm quite honest about is when people are at the end of interviews, they always ask, have you got any questions for us? My question is always, what kind of manager are you? And really ask into detail about that. And also, what are their expectations of you? Are you going to be left alone to just get on with the job? Are you going to be trusted to just get on with it and there'll be distance? Or are you going to have regular check-ins, reports? Like, you can tell a lot about that. And I think one of the things we were saying is that the manager is often more important than the job. Because you can have the best job in the world doing the best thing, but if you have an awful management structure or one that doesn't suit you, then even if you enjoy the job, you'll still be in the wrong place mentally.
Yeah, no, 100%. I love that, and I really like the wording as well around "doesn't suit you," because there's not okay, there might be some wrong or right way, but in terms of the wrong manager, it's about a fit, isn't it? About you won't know what manager you need until you know how you need to be managed. And so it's so important, again, that self-awareness piece. And it helps the manager, because if the manager says, oh, but what do you want from me? And then you're sat there like, I don't really know. Then it just isn't.
We're all different people. One of the things I've had before is people go like, oh, what do you need to, what can we give you to make you feel better or like do better? And I'm like, well, I don't know why I'm doing badly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what I need.
Because you're almost like, if I did, then I would be asking for it.
If I knew what I needed, I'd either tell you or I would do it myself. Like, I I think there are people who just don't know why there is an issue, and it's because there's often just a breakdown in communication, or it's the wrong it's the wrong match. I describe this like I have a little bit of a background in finance and marketing. I could probably, if I really wanted, go work in a high finance place, but I think I'd crash out pretty quickly because I don't have the same work culture or background or attitude to kind of that high intensity, no nonsense, killer attitudes.
Values of, at the end of the day, what do you want to achieve in that day?
Yeah,
I think that's something that, well, my manager, my current manager, she's probably the best man. Not probably, she's the best manager I've ever had. In terms of that, we're just a good fit. We're just a really good fit, and it just works. And she always kind of say at the end of the day, like, what are you proud of what you did today? Or maybe not even daily, but week, month, like. And it's something always comes up in our one-to-one time, etc. Is what are you most proud of since we last caught up? And I think that's a really nice way to put it. And if I'm then struggling to think of something that I'm proud of, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm not doing my job right. Just, am I on the right project? Am I going to have that motivation to get up and go? Because if I'm proud of what I'm doing, then almost that personal pride is going to be driving me more than targets, etc. Because I want to make a difference. Like,
I always think a lot of the time, development is really important to me. Like, how am I developing? Not just professionally, but as a person. What am I learning from this? And something I've always tried to be honest with, and with staff, and whether it's is having a development plan, and it doesn't need to be in the job. You could tell me, I want to be a better barista, I want to make latte art. Cool, easy. But some people have come up to me and say, I want to get more into maybe counseling and mental health, or I want to get more into finance. And I'm like, great. At that point, you can go a little bit extra as a manager, and you can find solutions to that. Whether it's, do you want to go shadow someone from another department? Do you want to just see what they do? If your team is exactly the same 8 years on and everyone's in the same job, then no one's really progressed. And as a result, you've ended up not meaning to, but you've kind of suppressed people and leveled them at a certain point. Yeah. Some people are not necessarily, just because you're good at your job doesn't make you a good manager for that job or a good team leader. They're a different skill set. But if you're stuck in the same job, sometimes there is a case of, well, am I improving? Am I trying to improve? Am I trying to go up? And if I am trying to go up, what am I doing to achieve that? Like, what am I doing that is not deserving of that? But if I want to go somewhere in life, how am I going to do it? And I think that's going back to a lot of stuff we've spoken about, is a lot of the people who I've really been inspired by are those who have seen the fact there is a barrier and they smash through it, but they've done it in their own way. Like, they might not have even meant to. Like, it just was a natural course of life, and they just sort of traveled along that route. And
that wasn't their intention, but just from doing what they're doing and being themselves, they don't even realize it, but they're actually a role model now, and they're trailblazing and leading the way. That's
exactly. And to them, they're just doing their job, but they don't realize the effect that they're having on other people.
Yeah, it comes back to, if you see it, you can be it kind of piece of. They don't realize the power of what they're doing.
And it's only when you reflect and you go, oh, I did that. It's a really cool kind of thing. And it was one of the things I really held myself to, is that I seen them develop as a person, as a professional. I can get them one more qualification. That's kind of an easy tick off the box. But do they feel like they're going somewhere in life? Because the last thing I want to do is have someone who feels lost, or not lost. You can feel like, I don't know what I want to do in my life. That's totally fine. And at that point, it's kind of my responsibility to at least sit you down and go, what are you good at? What do you like to do? What are you really passionate about? Because if they're happy, they'll be happy in work. There is always a knock-on effect, both in work and outside of place, where as much as people want to separate their work from their out of life, you can't. You end up taking stuff in, and if you close yourself off and you're like, this is my work, I'll focus on my work, you end up hating those like 7-8 hours where you're so focused. You
start thinking, this isn't me, and you're not authentic, so you're just not actually giving it. And it's brilliant. And something that Lucy, who was on in it series
Yeah.
1, she said about, she's relatively new into management, but about that, when you're managing the person, you're not managing just the job. So if you can't incorporate that outside life or understand that there are going to be things that are brought in, like you can't just ignore that, because that's going to impact their performance if they're not happy elsewhere, or if something's going on and there's anxiety. It's impossible not to let that impact you at work. It's just we're human. It's not possible.
I'm going to shout out in London, Send Coffee, who much like Well Grounded as well, just their attitude is incredible, in that I can train you skills, but that doesn't mean that you'll have sustainable employment just because I taught you skills. It's about a long-term development and really communication that they have with not only the person they've trained, but also the employers that have employed them, and making sure that there's a mediation to really understand each other and constant check-ins, because you see it in all manners of life, whether it's in prisons, or whether it's in law, whether it's in homelessness, debt, gambling, like even addiction. Like, you can get rid of the problem, but the problem isn't necessarily the item itself or there's something that's dealing with it. It's a long-term sustainability underneath it of avoidance. Like, if someone, you see people check into rehab multiple times, and it's because they've regressed, they've gone back on it, and you ask, why did they go back on it? Or they've gone back to prison. It's because when they've left, there hasn't been a system in place for them or support for them to really have a long-term solution. So you end up just like putting a plaster over a problem rather than really dealing with it at the source. And I have so much respect and love for charities and social enterprises who look at a problem and go, okay, so these people have a financial problem. What is the real problem behind that?
And there's always a deep, because that doesn't just happen for, like you're saying, for example, with the addictions, or example, we had someone on, Christian, who's talking about his gambling addiction, and about people don't just wake up and decide to bet their mortgage or bet money. There's a reason. It's the behavior is a symptom of something underlying, or there just needs a bit more support. So that's that kind of restorative kind of way of looking at it, and that longer term, I guess, goes back to saying again what you're doing at like the feed and stuff. We're not just giving you a skill, it's making sure that you're able to then use that skill, and just giving you that bit of structure and direction, which they maybe just don't have the confidence or don't have the knowledge or connections to work that out for themselves. So always a big one for community and giving back, and I can tell that you're very similar.
I wrote my master's thesis on cafe branding, and in the Northern Quarter in Manchester, and it was applicable to Shoreditch and lots of other places. It just is when you have sort of 26 specialty cafes all within a 1 mile radius. But what I really learned from that is the concept of community and identity, and really where you are, like, and really what values mean to you, what culture is to you. Each individual business can carry each of those and be representative not only of an area, of a people, of an idea. Like, there are groups within that, and people associate what they really are passionate about, and then they will go to that and really associate themselves with certain brands, certain identities, certain ideas. And community is kind of this key, which I talk about, where it can be both something beneficial to a person, finding their kind of community or people who are passionate about the same things as them, or it can also be something for you as like a football club or a business, where you look at your community and see what the needs are and how you can help, and really understand the people who are propping you up and represent them as well. Sometimes I see when places fail, they just sometimes people have just looked and tried to imprint themselves on an area or an idea, or there's just like, I have this vision, I'm going to open this, and they'll find somewhere and they won't look at whether it works or not. They'll just plop it down and just be like,
You can't just do the same thing in central London as you could do in a leafy village in somewhere.
Some of the discussions, I love kind of products and manufacturing things, and one of the things people say is if you build it, they will come, and I just don't believe that. I think actually if you built it and they've come, there was already a community there in the first place, that you've just built something for that community. Like, it's already been pre-established. If you turn up a location and you're not part of that community already, you're going to struggle. I've seen some beautiful places where, like, if one person is just part of the local community and they go, I want to open a cafe, everyone jumps in, not because they care about the cafe, they care about the person.
Yes.
And it's a pre-established place. Like, I really, when I look at businesses and when I choose who I pay things to, I care more about the person behind that or the idea than I do about the actual product. It's why, I support lots of local places. I really am just supporting certain people and the businesses and trying to support their families and just ideas. And I'm in a lucky position where I can do that, but there's a balance,
Yeah, no, certainly. And it comes back to, again, where you said about coffee is the vehicle.
Yeah.
It's the vehicle to connect you with those people.
Yeah.
So I'm wary of
I know.
I feel like we could just talk and I would love to, but there's two final things I kind of want to touch on.
Of course.
So the first one is the Happy Coffee Network. So I saw recently that they kind of did a little post, a little story talking about yourself. So I've seen this come up quite a bit. I'm not a member. I'm not in there. But I've seen a few people who are in it. And how long have you been involved in it? And what is the Happy Coffee Network, I guess? Is it?
So the Happy Coffee Network is essentially a forum. It's an online community. There is a small membership fee, but what that means is you get access to community boards where you can talk about stuff. You can get e-courses and learning from it, and you get access to brew-alongs, which is once a month we meet up, and not everyone is working coffee. Most people are actually home baristas who just get access to these people in coffee and can ask questions or learn about certain brewing methods. It's really a place to geek out about coffee, which isn't a forum that sometimes, so coffee for the longest time has been expressed through the home barista forums and lots, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there is just a level of gatekeeping, I guess the best way to describe it is, and a certain knowledge you need to really enter it, whereas the Happy Coffee Network is founded on kind of principles and culture that is a open space for people to ask the questions which they would feel embarrassed asking other people, but also really a chance for us to connect with each other. So I cannot remember how long I've been there, but I've been here the whole of this year, I think. And I wasn't one of the founding members. I was kind of in the first wave of people. And the only reason I joined was because I saw two people a part of it. Wendelin, who started it, who is amazing. And I have so much respect for. I used to live in the Netherlands, so I have a big passion for the place. And seeing Wendelin kind of rise out of the Netherlands amongst a very male-dominated group of people, and seeing such like a really strong competitive personality. She's really someone you can admire for how far she's come in coffee, considering a lot of the challenges you kind of face. She doesn't live in Amsterdam. She doesn't. She's not part of the main coffee network. She's her own person. She's incredible. Seeing her found it, and then seeing a friend, Stephen from Lucid in Belfast, just join it and just be like, I've joined this thing. I was like, cool, I'll jump on board as well, because I trust them, like both of them. And I joined it. It just turned out to be a really amazing place. I went to these brew-alongs. I met people who are in different like stages of their career, different stages of like passion, and just being able to kind of talk to them and give advice, or the other way around as well. They've helped me kind of write some proposals for stuff, and also just kind of in coffee and kind of lectures that I'd like to do in the future. But it's been a opportunity for me to talk to people from different fields and bounce ideas without judgment. And while it is kind of like a forum and a network, like one day we'll be sharing pictures of our cats, the next day we've just been swapping coffee. So they very kindly sent me some Christmas coffee, and I've sent some out to Germany as well. But it's really like, it's that same feeling you have when you kind of have pen pals. You have a connection to people, and it's cross-border, cross-cultural, and you have a chance to really share ideas and really talk to people. So it's been fantastic. And if you can join and you're able to, if you're in the best position to join, then I'd recommend it just from a chance to interact with people.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And again, it goes back to that. And I've certainly found that the coffee community has been so welcoming. I mean, in all its different guises, it's been great. Whether that's digitally, online, I've met a lot of people online.
Yeah,
they were just Instagram handles, and now they've become actual genuine friends, and that's incredible. And a final question, David, you've listened to a few episodes, so I think you know what's coming, and it goes off that Happy Coffee Network theme. But what does happiness mean to you?
So happiness to me is kind of twofold. On the one hand, on the daily, it's looking back and going, like, nothing bad happened today. Sometimes that can mean you're happy. Sometimes that means that nothing bad happened that day. But for me, a lot of the time it's a bit like when you receive mail. No mail is good news. It is a positive thing because nothing bad is happening. There is a general feeling of I am alive, I am doing well, I've made it another day, I have survived. And that's kind of a first level. But on top of that, what actual happiness is finding a balance for me. This harmony between just kind of where I've achieved my Zen, is this ability to balance the good and the bad, and to not let the bad feel so bad. To understand that the bad things that happen in our life, the challenges we face, are learning blocks for us to become who we are and stronger people, and really to build upon ourselves. I think you can often find happiness when you reflect on things going, I'm in a better place than I was then. And that is a opportunity to see like your development. And even if you feel like things were better in the past, actually those things have happened to you and more things have happened to you. And you are the person you are now, and the people around you love you for who you are now. And that's kind of something to be happy about. I don't look at anyone and think I love them back in 2006. You look at them as who they are now and you go, they are kind of who they are, and being able to look at other people and go, are they like me for who I am now, is a really wonderful position to be.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
No.
Happiness is a wonderful construct. It is just this idea that actually the positive outweighs the negative, and even the negative is part of the positive. It's all a learning experience.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks for that. Amazing. And really appreciate your time. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to catching up with you at another coffee festival soon.
They've just announced a few other coffee festivals, including Bristol. So hopefully I'll see you, I think, on the 14th, either August or September. But
definitely. I'm definitely looking to get back to there. I thought that was really, really good because it was obviously the first year as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of that's going to be there to stay now.
But it's been really a pleasure speaking to you and kind of bouncing. I know we have so many topics that we cross over in life. I think we both have very similar experiences, but different paths kind of that have led us back to the same place. Yeah,
and it's been great. Thanks very much. And
thank you.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this latest episode of Flat Whites and Insights, and I really hope you gained something from that conversation. I know I certainly did. It would mean a lot if you can like and subscribe on whatever platform you may be watching or listening on, but also if you head over to Instagram and give me a follow at Cappuccino. This is the best place to contact me, but also see the latest developments on the platform as we look to increase awareness of mental health through my passions for coffee and football. In addition, if you've heard something that you can relate to or you want to talk about a little bit more, feel free to message me on that platform. But also, if you fancy coming on yourself and having a conversation, then do let me know, because I'm always keen to connect with new people and get insights into other areas and other passions and other challenges that I might have no experience of myself. Thanks again, and I really hope you tune in for the next episode. Take care of yourselves. I've been Hans. Thank you.